you had to see it to believe it. You know, like when people talk about like great players that played hundreds, and no, I'm saying hundreds of years ago, decades ago, you think of like the all-time greats, you think to yourself, man, like, yeah, they were good during those times, but could they ball in this era of the sport? And I'm here to tell you, a dude like Ed Reed, bro, you had to see it to believe it. He wasn't just like one of the greatest defensive players of his era, bro. I can almost make the argument that he was probably one of the best football players on the field. To put it into perspective, you know how you go into a game plan worrying about a pass rusher, you know, Michael Parsons, TJ Watt, some of the linebackers in the league, like I could go on, and you got to prepare for them. You don't hear people talking about preparing for safeties. You know what I'm saying? You don't hear people talking about the impact that this safety could have on the game. And since Ed Reed, like, to put into perspective, bro, you know how when they talk about players that transit, you know when they talk about transcendent players that could play regardless of the generations, one of a million? Bro, since Ed Reed has left, I have yet to see a player even remind me of Ed Reed. That's how much of an anomaly Ed Reed was on the football field. The greatest safety of all time. You could call him a corner. You could call him whatever you want. Just the original ball hawk, the dog. Ed Reed, obviously a Hall of Famer already, but man, every single time they drop videos of Ed Reed, I always like going down memory lane, and I'm not even a Baltimore Ravens fan. And that's the love of it. Like, when a player is so good, you can't help but respect them, even though you're a fan of the opposition. I'm a Patriot fan, and I gotta give Ed Reed his flowers because he's just the greatest of all time. Just the greatest of all time. From his interceptions to his playmaking and his tackling, and him with Ray Lewis and T. Sizzle, you just can't make that up again, bro. So we're gonna take some time to just look back into how good was Ed Reed actually. And I don't even think this video is gonna do him no justice. Hit the like button for more videos and content from your boy, Gabo Say So. Let's get right into it.
A picture of Ed Reed. No safety has ever.
And of course, my bad, y'all. My bad. Gotta fix the audio.
Ever been more complete. We're talking about a guy who once baited to picture. How good was Ed Reed actually? Well, when you look up ball hawk in the dictionary, there's just a picture of Ed Reed. No safety has ever been more complete. We're talking about a guy who once baited Peyton Manning, but also leveled players for fun. A guy who has the 2 longest pick sixes in NFL history. A guy who Bill Belichick called,
"You're the best."
2 of the longest picks. Yo, bro, not even interceptions. He holds the record for 2 of the longest, first then number 2, pick sixes in NFL history, bro.
You're awesome.
To understand how good Ed Reed really was, we need to understand how Ed Reed came to be, looking at the many highs and even lows of his illustrious career. For many high school football stars, playing offense is what they love, and defense is just something they have to do. Ed Reed didn't see it that way. For nearly his entire high school career in Destrehan, Louisiana, Reed was all about the defense. Sure, he took snaps at various positions on offense, but where he truly thrived was at safety. In his senior season alone, he recorded 83 tackles, 7 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles, and returned 3 punts for touchdowns. And like many before him, football was Reed's ticket out of a tough situation. Early on in his NFL career, he opened up about his upbringing and admitted, "I never was in jail, but I did some things that probably would have put me there." Fortunately for Reed, the Hurricanes came calling. With several other offers, Reed picked Big East powerhouse Miami to continue his career. The U dominated the 80s and early 90s, racking up 4 national championships in 9 years. But when Reed arrived, it had been 5 years since their last title, and he was about to be a big part of getting back to their winning ways. After redshirting the 1997 season, he was given his first test as a starter in 98. Reed passed with flying colors, grabbing 2 interceptions and forcing 4 fumbles. In 1999, he followed up with 2 more interceptions. But this was all just a taste of what was to come in his final 2 seasons for the Canes. In 2000, Reed averaged 2 pass breakups a game and totaled a whopping 8 interceptions, earning him consensus first-team All-American honors. Then, somehow, Reed put together an even more iconic senior campaign. He led the NCAA with 9 interceptions, being named the 2001 Big East Defensive Player of the Year.
When's the last time you saw a safety coming out of college with 9 interceptions in a season in college, bro? Look it up. Like, someone's going to have to tell me who's the... Before Ed Reed, was there anybody that even had 7?
And apart from Reed's individual honors, Miami went undefeated, culminating in a national championship win over the Nebraska Cornhuskers in the Rose Bowl. Reed finished his career at Miami as a national champion and the most accomplished DB in the school's history, as he still holds the all-time interception record with 21. But after becoming a household name as a Hurricane, Reed now had the NFL in his sights. Reed's hard-hitting and nose for the football causes many NFL fans to forget he was not an elite athlete by NFL standards. He stood at just 5'11", 205 pounds.
Just for all the people always say, Ed Reed small.
And his 4.57 40-yard dash in the 2002 NFL Combine was middle of the pack. But what the Ravens...
I'm not going to pose it too much. 4'5", you cannot tell on the football field. That's when, like, the numbers at the Combine does not translate to what you see on the field, bro. This dude, Ed Reed, was a bullet on the football field. Like, let's get that out the way, bro. I didn't even realize 5'11", 205? Okay.
Saw in Ed Reed were his instincts. The Combine was middle of the pack. But what the Ravens saw in Ed Reed were his instincts and work ethic, leading them to draft him 24th overall in the 2002 draft. After Reed was drafted by Baltimore, ex-Ravens head coach Brian Billick described him as the smartest player I've ever coached. His natural intuition and preparation for the game exceeds anything I've ever been around. No player had better range. And Reed proved his coach right from the jump, emphatically introducing himself to the rest of the league. He broke up 12 passes, tallied 5 interceptions, and had 85 tackles in his rookie season. Nowadays, those numbers would undoubtedly lead to a Pro Bowl selection, and maybe even an All-Pro team. But after a tremendous debut, Reed was snubbed. And this would serve as fuel for him to up the ante in 2003. He increased his pass defended total to 15, while also upping his interception total to 7, including a pick 6. Throw in a forced fumble and 71 tackles, and Reed had solidified himself as an elite DB in just 2 years, getting that Pro Bowl nod and second-team All-Pro selection he was robbed of the year before. He also made his playoff debut that year in a 2017 loss to the Tennessee Titans. Although it ended in a Ravens defeat, Reed brought down his first playoff interception during an exceptional performance. And then, for a third straight season, Reed upped his game again. His 2004
There were cornerbacks that you wanted to avoid during this era of football. The Champ Baileys of the world, the Nnamdi Asamoahs. Who else was like a shutdown corner? The Charles Woodsons. It was almost impossible to avoid a safety because the safety, you're not guarding anyone, you know, barring obviously what the coverage. If it's a blitz, maybe you're covering tight end or a running back. But Ed Reed was allowed to roam the field, and his instincts, and I'm just talking about as a fan. I was just a fan, bro. His instincts were just second to none in terms of, bro, he had a quarterback's mindset for a defensive player. He understood tendencies. He understood patterns. He understood routes as a safety. Typically, that's the cornerback's responsibility. He understood all that and progressions. And, bro, if you try to look him off to go to the right, if you try to look him off to the left so you could throw it to the right, Ed Reed was a step ahead of you. He would know that you're trying to look me off to the left, so I'm a fake like I'm going to the left, but then beat you to the right because I know you're throwing it to the right. Some of the things that this dude was capable of doing is just, you run out of words to describe the ball hog tendencies of Ed Reed. Like a safety playing corner or corner playing safety, it's like he was in your huddle, bro. And he was athletic enough. It's surprising to hear them describe him as someone that wasn't athletic. You couldn't tell that in playing on the Baltimore Ravens. Bro, this dude could cover 40 yards like this.
Short of one of the greatest seasons we've ever seen from a
Facts.
safety. Reed registered 17 passes defended and led the league in interceptions with 9, including a then NFL record 106-yard pick 6.
Ed Reed takes it out of the end zone.
This season showed the world that Reed was not only an elite ball hawk, but also an elite runner with the ball in his hands. His 358 interception return yards in 2004 broke the NFL single-season record. He also forced 3 fumbles, had 78 tackles, and earned 2 sacks. Reed was everywhere, leaving little to debate as he was named Defensive Player of the Year, in addition to a first-team All-Pro nod and his second straight Pro Bowl. The craziest thing about his 2004 performance was that the Ravens missed the playoffs, and unfortunately, 2005 didn't get much better. For the first time in his career, Reed missed significant time due to injury. After playing nearly every game at Miami and every game through his first 3 NFL seasons, an ankle injury caused him to miss 6 games. Reed still played at a solid level, but it was clear that he wasn't 100%, and Baltimore missed the playoffs for the second straight year. Regardless, the Ravens knew they had a special player. and made sure to get out the checkbook ahead of the '06 season, paying Reid $40 million over 6 years. Locking in Ed Reed for the next 6 years was a no-brainer. But even the Ravens couldn't have anticipated how dominant the safety was going to be from 2006 to 2012. Of all the QBs that explained why Reid is so dangerous, NFL legend Tom Brady may have phrased it best. You never knew what he saw, but he saw everything. You were never going to fool him. He was just on some incredible defenses. He's one of the greatest safeties I've ever seen.
Yeah, Ed Reed. Ed Reed was, if you haven't seen him, go watch him. The guy was unbelievable and played as good as any secondary play in history. Ed Reed.
In 2006, Reid rebounded from injury to start all 16 games, having 5 interceptions for his second first-team All-Pro honor, and he continued to build a reputation for playing his best in the playoffs. In an ugly 15-6 loss to the Indianapolis Colts, Reid picked off Peyton Manning twice. In 2007, he followed up with another 7 interceptions, breaking up 13 passes for good measure. But in 2008, the Ravens star had yet another all-time great season. Reid tied his 2004 interception total with 9, leading the league in interceptions for the second time. He also
let's see some of the other dogs.
Total with 9, leading the league in interceptions.
Okay, so we had Charles Woodson, I mentioned him earlier, Troy Polamalu, Nick Collins, called it an early NFL career because of a neck injury. And then you got Michael Griffin. Why don't I remember Michael Griffin? Panthers? Anybody remember Michael Griffin?
For the second time. He also defended 16 passes and
crazy
forced
numbers.
and recovered a fumble for a touchdown, along with 2 pick sixes, one of which was a 107-yarder, breaking his own record for the longest in NFL history. Baltimore fans should still be upset that Steelers defensive end James Harrison won Defensive Player of the Year that season. Even more upsetting is that Pittsburgh beat the Ravens in the AFC Championship, keeping Reid out of the Super Bowl for another year. Even with 2 interceptions in Baltimore's 3 playoff games, Reid's dominance wasn't enough. Another injury disrupted his 2009 season, but Reid was still a second-team All-Pro and had 3 interceptions. Even his down years were better than most safeties' best, and he was a monster in the Ravens' playoff campaign, with 2 interceptions in their 2 games. As injuries became a more prevalent thing in Reid's career, his 2010 season can only be described as one of the NFL's great what-ifs. Due to a hip issue, Reid underwent surgery before the season began. Recovery took far longer than anticipated, meaning that he had to miss the first 6 games of the campaign. But when he finally did hit the field in Week 7, any doubts were instantly erased. Reid made his return with 2 interceptions, and in his 10 appearances in 2010, Reid brought down multiple interceptions on 3 occasions. He ended the regular season with 8 interceptions, a league high despite missing nearly half the season.
What? This is what I'm saying about this man. He still led the league. Mind you, he's a safety, not a cornerback. He still led the league with 8 interceptions after missing 6 weeks. He missed 6 weeks and still led the league in picks? Come on, man.
Critical injury, surgery, and significantly less time, Reid still earned his 5th first-team All-Pro honor. Reid had never played better in his career, but he had back-to-back seasons with significant injuries and was about to experience one of the toughest moments of his life. On January 7th, 2 days before the Ravens were set to face the Kansas City Chiefs in the wildcard round, Ed Reed lost his brother Brian. According to Reid's account, Brian was having mental issues before driving off from his family. The Reid family called the authorities in order to bring him home.
Contacted the police and had to report the car stolen to try to basically slow my brother down and just bring him in, bring him home.
But Brian refused to comply and jumped off a bridge in Harvey, Louisiana. Ed was shell-shocked. He was tough, but this kind of loss was something different. He was a loving kid, Reid said. He had a son who he cherished and loved. That was his reason for living. We are not immune from trials and tribulations that go through life. Despite suffering an incredible loss, there was only one thing Reid could do. Get back on the field and play the game that had always been his escape.
Everybody know what went on this week with Reid. He put it aside and he played for us. That's a true champion, a true warrior.
The Ravens' defense rallied around Reid, only giving up 7 points in their 37 win over the Chiefs. And teammate Terrell Suggs said after the game, who's a better teammate than Ed Reed? He didn't have to play today, but he chose to play. It was the simple fact that we wanted to give him 3 hours of peace. It definitely was an emotional win for him, and the rest of us too.
Line.
Unfortunately, the Ravens weren't able to carry that momentum over to the next week, as they lost to the Steelers in the divisional round. In 2011, Reed appeared in every regular season game for the first time since 2008. He made his 8th Pro Bowl appearance after a 3-interception season, and the Ravens made their 2nd AFC Championship appearance with Reed. And as so many playoff hopefuls did, they fell short to Brady and the Patriots. Entering his 34-year-old season, it was clear what Reed was missing. He had accomplished everything except the Lombardi Trophy. Time was not just running out in terms of the safety's age, but 2012 would also mark the final year of his 6-year deal with Baltimore. Through the first 11 games of the season, it appeared as if the Ravens were the NFL's team to beat. Baltimore went 9-2, and Reed had 3 interceptions and 11 passes defended. But Baltimore didn't just...
Side note, not to dismiss the story, but Ed was always infamous. Like, if the ball was overthrown, get ready to make a tackle. If I'm lying, I'm dying. If you threw a high ball to a receiver, get ready to make a tackle because Ed Reed coming down with it, bro. Picks like this, and this is why I pause at this moment, Ed Reed was infamous for. Even if he didn't get to the spot on time, he was just at the right place at the right time, bro.
Interceptions and 11 passes defended.
Get ready to make a
Baltimore
tackle.
didn't just cruise from there. In fact, things were about to get really rocky for the Ravens. Baltimore lost their next 3 games. After another brutal rivalry loss to the Steelers, they were then upset by Washington and dismantled by Peyton Manning and the Broncos. All the confidence from the first half of the season had disappeared. Baltimore was entering the playoffs, but they were limping in. And first up, Andrew Luck and the Colts. Baltimore's defense found itself right away, not allowing Indianapolis to score a single touchdown. It was the exact type of win Reed and the Ravens defense needed. But that win set up a divisional round rematch with the Broncos less than a month after Manning torched the Ravens. Baltimore
Hail
used
Mary by
everything in the
Flacco.
tank. Both teams traded haymaker after haymaker before Ravens QB Joe Flacco found a mile-high miracle
Jacoby
in the form
Jones.
of Jacoby Jones
Yeah, I
streaking
remember.
down the sideline to tie
Safety
the game
played
at
it too
35
short.
and force overtime. While that game was more about the offense, it was Reed's partner at safety, Corey Graham, who picked off Manning late in overtime to set up a Justin Tucker game-winning field goal.
Kick is on its way and it looks good.
For the 3rd time in his career, Reed was headed back to the AFC Championship. Once again, Brady and the Patriots awaited the Ravens. Who else? But this was a rare moment where Brady was human, throwing 2 interceptions and keeping Baltimore in the game after taking an early lead. Both Baltimore's offense and defense came in clutch late. After scoring 2 TDs to take a 28-13 lead, the defense held off Brady to punch their ticket to the Super Bowl. The Ravens met the San Francisco 49ers in the Super Bowl, setting up the Harbaugh Bowl. But from Reed's perspective, this was simple. This was his only chance at a Lombardi Trophy. It was the biggest game of his career.
And of course he
like
got a pick.
nearly every playoff appearance before it, Reed was ready to make a statement. After the Ravens jumped out to a 14-3 lead, Reed locked on to 49ers QB Colin Kaepernick and intercepted him to set up a potential blowout. While the 49ers refused to roll over, they dug themselves too deep a hole to climb out. After building a 28-6 lead, Baltimore held on to win 34-31 for the organization's 2nd ever Super Bowl. Just a year removed from the death of his brother, Reed had finally reached the pinnacle of pro football. The kid from Louisiana honored his brother's memory the best way he knew how, by becoming a champion. The following offseason, Reed considered retirement, but he just couldn't do it, despite the Ravens allowing him to walk. He was a free agent for the first time in his career, and he decided to switch teams for the first time, joining the Houston Texans for one last payday. It lasted until November. After a loss to the Arizona Cardinals, Reed publicly said that the Texans had been outplayed and outcoached. He was then released. But Reed's football story didn't end there. Instead, he gave it one last ride with the New York Jets to end the 2013 season. In 7 games with the team, he totaled 3 interceptions. Not too shabby for a 35-year-old. Ed Reed finished his career 7th all-time in interceptions and 1st in interception return yards. He racked up 9 Pro Bowls and 5 first-team All-Pros, on his way to becoming a first-ballot Hall of Famer in 2019. For more content on the NFL's all-time great players, line up with Blitz.
Yeah, man. There's certain players we could have the GOAT debate about all day, every day, but one player I refuse to get into any type of argument with or debate with is Ed Reed. Even if you want to throw out like certain legendary safeties like Troy Polamalu, some of the other guys that's played, Ed Reed was truly one in a generation type of player, bro. You can't fake the numbers, the tackles, what this man has accomplished. And just as a football player, when you get some of the highest praises from quarterbacks, some of the greatest of all time, son, like, bro, you just had to have been there, bro. This dude was unbelievable. Like, every week was like Ed Reed making a highlight play, and it was just like Baltimore's defense was so ferocious with Ray Lewis in the middle, T. Sizzle, yeah, Samari Rowe, yeah, Chris McAllister, like, oh my, just dogs. The whole defense was a unit, but Ed Reed made them overkill. And it's crazy that they only won one chip, you know. But I'm gonna holler at you guys next video. This was how good was Ed Reed actually, and I still don't feel like this video did him any justice. At least he's in the Hall of Fame, man. Shout out to Ed Reed. I'm out.